All right. Here we are. This is Dr. B. Just so excited. We got another edition of the Journey Freedom Podcast. Oh my gosh, you guys are in for a treat today. Michael, every time I get to do one of these podcasts and I get to talk to, I guess I just have a bias when I get to talk about energetic Black men who are doing stuff. My heart just gets warm. I get excited. I can't wait to hear everything that's going on in your life and all the things you're being able to do. And I love my other show. So I have another show. It's called Living Boldly with Purpose, and it is just that. And we'll talk about a lot of the aspects and the things, and what does it mean to live in purpose and all that kind of stuff. But there's just something special about. We're at about 200 and some episodes now of the Journey to Freedom podcast. I said in 2024, I had gone to it was a trust leadership conference, and it was in Minnesota. It was really good. A guy by the name of David Horsager led this event. I've had him on my podcast, on my Living Boldly with Purpose podcast. It was probably one of the best. I'm 60 years old now. It's probably one of the best conferences that I had been to, and it's a 3-day event. And he pulls no stops, and he understands trust and what it means to trust and all these things. And so there's 500 people in this room. And, I start looking around, and there's about 30 folks that look like me that are in the room. And I'm going, okay, 500 people, some really good content, some things that our community really needs to, just to know and to be exposed to. If there's a community of people that have trouble with trust issues sometimes, I think it's ours. And I'm not just because I live within our community, and, it could be the same everywhere, but somehow I don't think so. And so I came back and I said, this needs to change. And so in 2024, I said, I'm going to do at least I'm going to find Black men who are doing something and making a change on a community level, on a, in the city level, in the rural area level, not just, what we see as entertainment or what we see as music or, or some of the things, the people that we idolize because they're famous. But what about the everyday person who is going to schools and showing up at parks and, making sure that people are taken care of are there. And so that began that journey to freedom. And then I was able to take, some men down to Alabama and do some stuff, and just continues just to be this incredible place where I get to talk about some of the wonderful things that we're doing in every community. And then, I get to talk to you, and get introduced to you and go, wait a minute, here's just another example of somebody who's out there doing stuff. And so like all of our other shows, I've asked Michael to share his story, to talk about what it is that makes him, I guess, to tell us about his genius, what he's been able to do in the community that he's there. And I said, hey, like I tell everybody, you can start anywhere you want. Start at your mama's womb or start somewhere in the middle, because I think for a lot of us, if we can understand who you are, then what you do becomes even that more special. And so, again, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time in your evening time here in the middle of the week to be able to be on this podcast. And I just hope it just enlightens and helps the folks that are watching. And so please go ahead, tell us your story, and then we'll just chop it up after that.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. B. I'm excited for the conversation. And of course, I'm Mike Butler, and I've never been called a genius before, so that's a new title. I really appreciate the look inside any kind of genius that I may have. But my story really starts out in my hometown, St. Louis, Missouri. I played a baseball game when I was a kid, and I played shortstop for a team here called the Herbert Hoover Boys and Girls Club. It's in North City, the low income area of the city, and I grew up not rich at all, poor as a kid. Mm-hmm. And we were playing a team that I knew was cheating, and this team is a very well recognized name in St. Louis. I'm not going to say because I don't want to offend them, but I've told this story that this team was cheating. They were throwing dirt in the air going into second base. If you play baseball, I played shortstop, so they kind of throw some stuff at you going to third or put their cleats in the air, sliding in the base. And to be honest, we lost that game to this team, and the rival team that we have at Herbert Hoover, they loved hearing me say that we lost the game. And I remember telling my dad at the end of the game, I was like, Dad, it's not fair. It's like, Dad, you told me cheaters never win. That's not fair. They were obviously cheating. They won the game. And my dad told me something that he told me a lot when I was a kid. He said, son, life isn't fair. And it was at that moment that I realized that I wanted to make life more fair for everyone. And as a 7-year-old, I didn't accept that concept that life couldn't be fair, even though growing up in in a poor area of St. Louis, Missouri, I wanted to make sure that other folks didn't experience the negative and the trauma that I had as a kid from time to time. So I in a sense dedicated my life to public service. Then I then attended college some years later at Alabama A&M University, where the theme of the school is service is sovereignty is our motto. And it's a great public institution, HBCU in Alabama, in Huntsville, Alabama, that asks folks to use what they learn here in service to the community and in some parts of the race. And I was blessed to be very successful at Alabama A&M. I was a student government president by my senior year. I graduated with honors. And be honest, I had a blast at Alabama A&M University. I had a great time. But if there are any young guys listening to this podcast, I like to tell them, when you're thinking about college, go to the place that wants you, no matter what that place is. And I chose Alabama A&M because I got a full ride academic scholarship. My tuition was fully paid, and my room and board. I followed the money, and it was the best decision I ever made. I got accepted to many other colleges, some with bigger names, but they wanted me to pay them to be there. In a sense, Alabama A&M was paying me to be present, and I felt like even at 17 that was important, that somebody wanted me and that the organization wanted me, and that was truly changed my college experience. And it truly helped me to be more successful in college and to take risk and to expand in my leadership potential. And I got to try a lot of different things and really practice the leadership I got to do later on in life. So after I left college, I wanted to start a company. I'm much like you, Dr. B. I'm an entrepreneur. In a sense, some people can call me a serial entrepreneur. My father started a business when I was 9 years old, and since then I really have been hit with a bug like him to lead my own company and do things my way. And I decided that I wanted to get into service, but in order to be a public servant, I wanted to get rich first. I wanted to have a company, wanted to have some money, and that way I could never be bought out as a politician. That was my goal at like 20. Like, okay, I'm dedicating my life to service, but it's better. I put this in my mind. It was better for me to get into service if I had a lot of money. And some people could say that was the devil's extra thing to put it in on.
I love it.
But and so I decided after I graduated undergrad, so I got a business degree in undergrad, but I graduated in 2008. I originally wanted to start a company right after college at 22. And if you remember the year 2008, it was a big economic downturn. Quite a few people in my graduating class didn't have a job offer upon graduation. It wasn't easy for people in my generation coming out of college for those few years. And I was lucky enough to get a job offer where I was actually started out in corporate America at a small company, you might have heard of it, called Walmart Stores Incorporated. I started out in Bentonville. Yes. Started in Bentonville with a really cool job as a 22-year-old. I was a liquor buyer for Walmart at 22 years old. Pretty fun job. So I was the term was replenishment manager. I was responsible for purchasing and replenishing liquor stock for over 600 Sam's Clubs across the country, and I was really good at it. I was really good at my job. Made good money, not great money, but decent money for a 22-year-old. I lived a very peaceful and cool life in Bentonville, Arkansas, but I hated my job. I
Mhm.
hated it. I hated corporate America from probably the 31st day. Like, it was really cool until, I mean, every day I walked into work at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was just like, why am I here? I didn't feel
Mhm.
any purpose in life. And I have learned quickly that the reason I was there in Bentonville was to meet my wife. I met my wife in Bentonville, Arkansas, the summer I decided to leave, and we are still married today. And we started dating then in Bentonville, and we were married today. But I at the time I could not tell you why I was in Bentonville, Arkansas. So I went to lunch with a mentor of mine and frat brother who was in the legal department at Walmart Stores Incorporated, and he was asking me, "Hey, what do you really want to do in life? What are your real goals? Like, do you want to stay here in Walmart forever?" And I was telling him, "No, I want to get into politics. I'm just here to make money and learn how to run a company. Maybe I want to maybe make quite a bit of money and then run for office." And this brother changed my life and was heaven sent. He said, "Michael, quit now." He said, "Get out of here." He said, "Get out of here right now." He said, "You don't want to get stuck in Bentonville." He said, "You don't want to meet some lady. You're not married, don't have kids. Don't get stuck. Do what you want to do right now. Do your purpose." And that really resonated with me. And so when I got back to my desk that day, I decided I prayed about it at my desk, and
Mhm.
I was driven uh, to pursue that. And kind of the plan that came to me from this mentor was that, hey, if you just got to go volunteer and be an intern in a campaign, go back home and do that. If you're going to be a staffer, go back home and do that. If you want to go to graduate school, like just go to graduate school or something like that, go and do that. So I pursued, researched all three of those avenues, and I kind of did all three. So I
Okay.
actually applied to graduate school first at the University of Missouri, which is 30 minutes from the state capitol and has a lot of connections to the state capitol in Columbia, Missouri. And I got accepted to graduate school for a master's in public administration, and I got a full scholarship for that for graduate school. So I applied that day, and I found out a few months later I got a full ride tuition and room board scholarship to graduate school. When I was in graduate school, I started out in politics as an intern. I decided
Okay.
that I want to do graduate school differently than I did undergrad. In undergrad, I was very involved on campus. I was. Some people could call me one. I wouldn't say I was one of the men on campus, one of the big guys on campus. But I said this time I want to be just as involved off the campus as I was on campus and
Okay.
build community relationships, as well as on campus relationships. So I was able to do that by being an intern in the state legislature. So I started out as a grad student and an intern in the Missouri State House. I worked for the state representative that represented the University of Missouri and had a blast. I originally wanted to go back home and run for local politics as a city council person, but I fell in love with state politics at 23. And my state representative, who I was working with, she fell in love with me. So she actually, at the end of my internship, her current staffer was leaving to pursue another job opportunity. She asked me to work for her, to be her legislative assistant. Well, a little bit of that. She asked me at the time, what do you want to do when you graduate? I said, I want to run for office. I want to be a state representative. I decided I don't want to go back home. Just go back home and be a city councilman. I want to be up here. She said, well, I'm helping you do that. I want to hire you as my aide. So now I became a staffer. Great job. I almost loved that. So I served elected official for 2 years in Jefferson City and learned everything about the state capitol and everything about being a good state elected official. And as God would have it, my home district in St. Louis, Missouri, for state representative opened up in 2011 through redistricting through the whole state. There was nobody running for the place where I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Really?
So and as fate would have it too, there were a couple state representatives who were looking for someone to run in that space, and they asked me if I was interested in running, and it was just heaven sent. And so I said yes. I said let me look it up first and research, see if I can win. And I did, and a month later I said, yeah, I want to run in this. And the rest is history in a sense when it came to me winning that race. And I went from in Bentonville, Arkansas at the lunch with my friend to becoming an actual elected official within a span of 3 years. And that was, I mean, just truly a blessing, not something that I thought would occur when I was having that lunch. So, ever since then, I was very successful as a young state legislator. I was 26 years old when I first got elected to the state house. I thought I knew a lot, and I did know a lot. I knew but at the same time, I do look back and as a 39-year-old now, like, man, I was young and making some mistakes. I did a lot of things right, but I also did quite a few things that I wish I could, I wish youth that the experience had of overcame my youth. But at the same time, I was very successful as a state legislator. The things I learned in corporate America and in college, and the things that my father and my mother instilled in me as a child, led to me becoming one of the youngest members of leadership in the state house. I was elected to be the caucus chair of the Democratic Caucus at age 30. So other leaders chose me to lead them in the Democratic Caucus, and I was very successful. And I was very successful to, in a sense, change the way some of the things in our caucus were run and lead leaders at a young age. But at the same time, to get to work to the position I'm in now, I got married and had those kids as my friend knew what happened. And in that last term, I never forget the beginning of that last term. I'm in my dream job, and I lived in St. Louis. The state capital is in Jefferson City, and most politicians, state level or congressional politicians, have to travel away from home in order to do their job in their state capital. It's a sacrifice that you make. My daughter was just turning 3 years old, and she was old enough to talk at the time. And I never forget, on a Monday when I was leaving town to go to the state capitol that week, to be gone for about 5 days, my daughter looks up at me and she says, "Daddy, are you leaving again?" And that's when it hit me that I worked in a different city than I lived in, away from my family. And while had a really good last 2 years in the legislature, my family life was not good. And my it really affected how I even felt about what was my dream job. It was harder and harder to drive those 2 hours to get to the state capitol every week. So I decided to run for a more local office to really stretch my master's degree in public administration, because asked the legislative branch to be an executive branch office, as well as allow myself to be closer to family, which became more important to me at the time, and still is. I ran for office in 2018 as a recorder of deeds for the city of St. Louis, and within 6 to 9 months, I was elected as the first African American person ever in the history of our state to be elected as a recorder of deeds in the state. There are over 100 counties in our state, and I'm the first elected African American. There's been a couple appointed, but I'm the first one ever in all the counties in our state to be elected, as well as, of course, the first one ever in my city to be an African American. This position had never been held by an African American in the past. And since then, I've just transformed the office to be more forward thinking, to come to the 21st century. And I like to say, in some ways, the 22nd century. We're utilizing online services and artificial intelligence and better customer service than any other office in our state. And right now, we're the highest rated government office in the entire state. And quite frankly, we're still not satisfied, and we want to keep pushing that a little further and save the city some money and give our citizens better services. And I found that service doesn't have to be it doesn't have to equal fame or equal something that gets you in the news every day, but it's something that you that dedication I have for service from when I was a kid, something that just makes someone's life a little easier and reduces the amount of trauma they may have. And I've been blessed. So my focus has went from just serving the entire public and trying to change the world, to serving my family and serving my local community. in changing the world on that level until God calls me to serve at another level.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. What an incredible story. And as I think, I got so many questions and figure out where to start. So initially when I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I don't never think I ever heard anybody like when they were kids saying, I want to grow up to be the recorder of deeds. It's just not one of those. And you don't think of it as this position that has impact, but it must have a lot of impact. So maybe just kind of share a little bit about what a recorder of deeds does and like what is your impact as you move through the city that you're in.
Yeah, the recorder of deeds. There's a recorder or a register or a clerk in every county in the country. My office is responsible for providing all the land to providing and overseeing all the land deeds of the city, all the birth records, all the death records, and all the archives and the marriage licenses of the city. So any important document that you need, or we are there to provide that for you when you need it, as well as keep it safe for safekeeping to protect those actual physical documents in the meantime. The first recorder of deeds in the country, Black recorder of deeds in the country, is actually Frederick Douglass, and
Really?
recognize how important it was to in the 1800s, how important it was for African American to oversee land records for folks in our community, and that was his first book and only political office as throughout his life.
That's so cool. When just because you brought that up, when I think of being able to create relationships and be around people, I don't know if there's, I guess they say like with Kevin Bacon, there's 7 levels of separation and that kind of stuff. And can you find commonality in people? I'm sure as a politician, you've been able to find and create relationships through commonality. But when I think about so I have a stepson, and his lineage goes to Frederick Douglass. So he's like great grandson of Frederick Douglass. And here now, Frederick Douglass is the county recorder. He was one of I took him with us when we went to Alabama. We learned all about, not just what the history books say, but a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's so cool that there's always something in common. So I guess when I think about identity, and I don't know if there's term limits as the recorder of deeds, and you can only do it so many years, and then you have to do something else. But maybe kind of talk to me, because you said you grew up in St. Louis, and it wasn't, not wealthy. In fact, you said you guys were poor, and then you get a scholarship academically. So there had to be something that's going on in this community that you're in that allowed you to excel academically, and for you believe that you belonged going to Huntsville to be on a scholarship, and that you could thrive there.
Yeah, when it comes to education, I don't have this. I don't have the sob story that some people have. Like I'm not a first generation college student. I didn't have to. Of course, it was expected of me to excel academically, but not for the reason not for a normal. I would say a movie stereotypical way of African American. My great grandmother has a college degree. My grandmother has a master's degree. My mother is an attorney. She has a JD. On my mother's side, education attainment was an expectation, even though we didn't have financial advantages. We always had in a sense of we were instilled in us to have educational advances, and that in a sense I grew up in a family that education and intelligence was more important than money. And so going to Alabama A&M was more of an extension of what my grandparents did. My grandparents attended an HBCU and met at an HBCU in Kentucky State University. Okay. I grew up in a household where the Crisis magazine was on the table every day, and I didn't even know what that was until I went to HBCU. I was like, oh, this is the NAACP's magazine. Like this, I've been reading this my whole life. I didn't know. I mean, Ebony magazine was on the table every day. I mean, next to the Bible. So we were very and I got it that my grandparents are educators, so they're both teachers in the St. Louis public school system. So the education attainment was not even a question for us, and but getting a scholarship was a choice that I made. That and attending HBCU was not forced on us. So my mother went to University of Missouri Columbia. She didn't go attend a HBCU. It wasn't a requirement. We went to HBCU. But when I was 17 years old, this little movie, well, I can't say little, this little movie came out called Drumline, that was starting planning. I really wanted to go to Florida State University, and by the time I watched Drumline, I was like, I want to go to Florida A&M, and I decided that I wanted to go to a HBCU, which in a sense was in most cases are smaller schools than our state schools, and it opened up a world to me that allowed me to be able to get more money, scholarship money as well. So no, what I saw was successful parents and grandparents who showed that getting an education could give you more options. It wasn't a requirement, but it gives you more options to success. And that's one thing I try to instill in younger folks as well. Is that I mean, if you want to go do trucking or do anything else, that's perfectly fine. But sometimes you might be limiting your options career wise at the beginning. Now, let me add this too. I've noticed the older I get is that the more money you can make at 18, 19, if you save that money, cash expands your options as well. So there's a way to, if you're not going to go to college, make sure you're saving your money and investing your money until when you turn 25 or 26 or 30 or 35, you have cash. Cash gives you options as well. But if you want those career options, you can go to college and you can go from one place to another. You can, it does allow you to move careers a lot better if you have a college degree rather than if you stayed in one position and didn't have a degree. But sometimes a lot of college graduates don't have that cash that a lot of the non college graduates have early on in life.
Talk to me a little bit about, we think of, associations and people that have been in our lives. And you talked a little bit about a mentor that you had that just told you to quit. I've never heard it called Walmart Incorporated. It kind of has a ring of, some of the paternity stuff here, but I love it. But and sometimes say you are who you hang around with. You are the people that you're around. I like to say sometimes you are who you compare yourself with that you hang around with. But maybe kind of talk about that. What are some of the people in your life, the people that made a difference, that kind of challenged your trajectory into where you are now and the abilities that you have with folks now? Maybe kind of just talk about how important that is.
That is very important. When I think about a lot of my mentors have mostly been from my fraternity.
Okay.
I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated,
Okay.
and I became a member in college at Alabama A&M University.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I came from a very large chapter, and when I crossed, we were actually the largest chapter in the country. So I said to say that I had a lot of attachments and a lot of associations with really smart and successful guys because we're about achievement in Kappa Alpha Psi. So upon graduating, I had 120 brothers who were in the same fraternity as me, and then about 30 or so pledge every year. So we have a large network of folks who are connected, and I have some. And what was interesting about our chapter is that we have quite a few successful politicians coming directly from that school chapter. Two of them were in the state legislature when I interned there. Those two guys were a part of the group that asked me to run for office. So when I showed up in the state house as an intern, I mean, what amazing is to me that I have two, and these guys were both young too. They were 20-something-year-olds just elected in 2008, young politicians who really gave me an advantage over other folks that had a long-standing relationship. While other interns are just getting there to meet new people, I knew two actual young popular state representatives who are like, "Oh, hey, Michael, how are you? Yo, come have a drink with us here." That was a big deal for something that people usually get. Maybe they go to Harvard or if they go to Yale. I got that by going to Alabama A&M University, and those guys directed me in the right way. Of course, they directed me to run in a district that was meant, in a sense, was meant for me. But after that, one person that has, and I got to shout their name. Those guys are State Representative Chris Carter, whose family is a legend in St. Louis, and at the time State Representative Don Calloway, who is a media powerhouse nationally here now, and is one of my really good friends. But they also, I would say, the one since I've been elected, another fraternity brother of mine, his name is Starsky Wilson, Reverend Starsky Wilson, who's now the director of the Children's Defense Fund, has been a tremendous person to be associated with and to learn from, and to in a sense compare. In a sense, when I met Starsky, he was a street preacher for a church in my state representative district, and in a sense a civil rights leader here in St. Louis. He led a lot of the protests around the Trayvon Martin murder, but the one here in St. Louis, and was just a dynamic community figure and just a smart guy. In a sense, I really respect him and Don and Chris because Kappa is not the first thing people think when they see us. Kappa is it's what connects us. It's not what we promote ourselves. So just to be able to see him and others lead past just the association with such a bold organization was important. But since then, he's really directed me in ways that makes me a better leader. He's a reverend, he's and a nonprofit leader, and it's something that's connected to community, something I was interested in at one point in life as well. And yeah, so those I like your point about you are who you compare yourself to. In a sense, like you are who your role models are. Yeah. And I like that. I agree. And that has, and I've been blessed to have great role models and have those, not either with my family or with my fraternity, and not while I have sought out other role models and mentors and been successful in that, and sometimes unsuccessful in getting some good mentors. I've been blessed to have some natural good role models. I do want to add something too. Some people say, there's an old term, the measure of a man, and Martin wrote a book about the measure of man, and he has a historic quote: "The measure of man is not where he stands in times of peace, but in times of controversy." I have a different saying about measure of man than Martin Luther King. I say the measure of a man is how he treats those he doesn't need. And I think and when I think about mentorship and some of those guys who took me under their wing, they didn't need me. These guys were always successful. Quite a few of them are 10 years or older than me, or they were ahead in life than me. All three that I just named more talented than I am. But the way they treated me as someone that they didn't need was changed my life and was very important to how I treat others too. Because somewhere along in my career, I decided that I need to treat everyone like they're the governor of the state of Missouri. And I found myself my first couple years as a young elected official being kind of important and soaking in the newfound importance. And I had a lot of, when you're a politician, you have a lot of people coming at you or asking you questions or calling you, your phone's ringing a lot. And I wasn't answering my phone. I was answering my phone a lot, but I was prioritizing who I was answering the phone for, who I would interact with. Because that's what you do as a professional. You have to prioritize things. But I realized that if the governor or the governor's office called me, I'd pick up on the first ring. Oh, I gotta. And then it got to where I was like, oh, they didn't call me as much as I wanted to that year. Maybe they called you once or twice that year, which is kind of be a big deal if you're 20-something years old. But I realized that all those people that are calling me that in a sense I don't need, I'm the governor to them. And it's very important that if I'm important to those folks, I need to make sure that they're important to me. And that really changed my life in a sense as measure myself as a person is how I'm in service to folks, and not how I can use my relationships to just improve myself or improve their well-being, but how I'm in service to them in every day. And a simple thing is picking up the phone.
Man, that's powerful. I was just thinking as you were saying that about the people that I interacted with in the last 2 weeks. And did I treat them? Because I don't know if there's any, there's obviously with several people that I do need that, I interact with. But then I think about the folks that are coming to me for advice, or coming to me for help, or coming to me because of whatever the reason is. Mm-hmm. And then how did I treat them? And I love it. I mean, I wrote it down, so it's going to be something that I'm going to incorporate in the things that I do. Oh my gosh! And I love the fact that you were able to find your frat brothers. I have a cousin in Texas. His name's Chris Arnold, which is like in the Radio Hall of Fame, and he's like this famous on a Daily Show stuff, and he's Kappa. And he had told me that if there's anything you do, Brian, you got to pledge Kappa. You go. I unfortunately didn't go to a university or a college that even had a remote of fraternities and stuff. But had I been to one, I would have got lynched if I didn't go. So I would have. And he's been on my show, and I'm thinking of all the people he's introduced me to with the same thing, where the fraternity of brothers that make sure that they take care. And we're really heavy in the Omegas here in Colorado, and when I get to see and interact with a lot of them and how they treat each other. I want to shift focus a little bit, because it's something that you mentioned that I don't want to pass over, because I think it's so important, especially when we talk about the persona of what Black men are. You said you changed a pretty heavy, intense job that was in Jefferson City because of your family, because it was that important to you. And so when I think about being a dad and what that means to be a dad, and we often talk about how our kids, we know all of our kids absolutely need their dad, and every child should not grow up without a dad if it's at all possible, and how big of an influence that is. But sometimes we don't talk enough about what it means to be a dad. And because of who you are and what you've done as a result of the importance of that, please share with us what you believe it means to be a dad.
What it means to be a dad is a given purpose. People look for purpose in their life, and when you make children, then you have a purpose that you don't have to question. And man, as long we're both professional guys. I've read your bio. You've had a great career, and you've done a lot of different things. And sometimes when you're going through your career, you're questioning, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing now? Like, God, you said I was supposed to do that 5 years ago, but I'm still supposed to be doing this. Did I do it already? Being a dad, there's no question. Like, being a dad this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is supposed to be the most important thing in your life. And I'm very blessed to have two wonderful kids and someone to share parenting with my wife. And my wife is the best mother. She makes being a dad much easier. But being a parent is more about purpose. So a few things led me to become become more of a family man than a career-driven person. One was, I grew up with half of my childhood was with, I had a dad. My dad was in the household. My parents got divorced when I was 9 years old, so halfway through my childhood. And in a sense, I was raised halfway by a single mother. My father was, of course, my father had visitation, and we still know him. My father is one of my biggest fans and friends. But during that time, that was very difficult for me and my siblings. The divorce was debilitating for some of my siblings. They still have not gotten past the trauma of that divorce. But more importantly, not having our dad in the household had a tremendous impact on my childhood, and a tremendous impact on me. And I vow, like, really as a young person, I would never want my kids to not have their father in the house. And Then I always reach back to, there was a movie I saw. I don't know when this movie came out. Either I was in high school or college, and I watch this movie almost every year now. After I became a father, I was reminded this is where this feeling came from for me. It's a movie called Family Man that stars Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Great movie where, because I, as a young kid, and growing up either middle class, some parts of my life, but later on in life, we did become. My parents got education attained, we became middle class, but either middle class or poor, you want to make money. You're ambitious. You're like, hey, I just want to get out of my predicament. And in this movie, Nicolas Cage is a very successful Wall Street broker and rich single guy who lives in Manhattan in a penthouse and drives a Ferrari through half of the movie. And this is the guy you want to be. I mean, and in a sense, he has a Scrooge moment where he is confronted by an angel who gives him his life in New Jersey, where he would have if he had married his, in a sense, his college sweetheart. And at the end of the movie, he chooses the college sweetheart over his success for obvious reasons, mostly kind of the kid thing. Those kid scenes, if you've seen the movie, they're just amazing. So yeah, I think at let's say I was 17 or 18 or 22 when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's what purpose is about. Nicolas Cage had all the success in the world, but he felt way more purpose after the 3 weeks of being with a family. And yeah, I think that's what being a parent is about. It's about the natural purpose that you get, the moments that you have as a parent that money can never buy, money can never get you. But most importantly, for me, parenting is time limited. Devoting the time to parenting is important because my kids are only going to get me in a daily way for most likely 18 years.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to get them, my kids are 6 years apart, for 24 years. So from the day my daughter was born to the day my oldest daughter was born, to the day my youngest daughter is going to most likely go off to college, I'm only really guaranteed 24 years. If me and my wife Lord willing, this is not gonna happen. But my dad didn't get 24 years. I was say is my parents, but my dad only got 14 in the house with his children. Well, no, not his children. My oldest brother's 10. He only got 10 years to be in the house with his children every day. So these are, I look at these are just precious times that my daughters are just growing. You see the results in being parenting differently than you see in a career, because you're watching something every day grow and physically, it's like a tree, it's physically grow. And they tell the best jokes and the best stories, and parenting is just a joy and an amazing part of purpose in your life.
And so it's only because you said they tell the best jokes, and they're not even funny unless they're coming from your kids. It's so cool. Some other person's kid tells that joke, you're like, that's dumb, and then you hear your kid say it. It's the funniest thing ever. And it's so cool. It's that feeling you get. I can remember like when my first son was born. I have 8 children. My first son was born, and literally have watched Roots or whatever, and holding them up and going, behold the only thing greater than yourself, and what it meant to me is changing who I am. And then to see them grow up. And so, I'm fortunate enough to I have seen all my kids graduate high school. Most of them graduate college and have careers, and I have 16 grandkids now. And so I get to see that now the greatest thing ever is those grandkids. And so much that you have to look forward to. But one of the things that I would love for you to even go beyond, because one of the things they say is the greatest thing you can do for a child, right, or for a son or a daughter, if you're in the household, is love their mom, right? To be able to have them see that, and maybe talk about that relationship that you have with your spouse, that they get to see as an example. That those are the people that they're comparing, right? The association.
Whenever people ask me this, I'd say that I'm sure my wife would have a much different answer than I would.
I love it.
But I have heard my wife say that I'm a different person. I'm a much. I definitely feel like I'm a better husband than I was um, every year. Hopefully every year, but definitely 5 or 6 years ago. Um, I don't know. I think your question was, well, your question was just the
Yeah.
relationship. How important is the relationship with a spouse? Barack Obama says the most important relationship you ever have, the most important choice you ever make in life, and there's no doubt about that. From even any successful person will tell you, who you choose to be your partner and share your life with is very important. I was fortunate enough to know that as a younger person. My grandmother and my mother instilled that in me as a young person, like who you choose, who you spend your time with, as who your girlfriend is. That's very important. Like don't be going after these bad girls in a sense, because they're gonna waste your time. And I was very ambitious even as a young person, and of course I decided I want to be in public service at 9 years old. I decided I want to be a NFL player and then own a business and do all these things in life at a very young age. And I was lucky that I had parents that said, "Well, if you're going to do that, then you probably need to be very picky when it comes to partners." And uh, our marriage, my marriage with my wife, Erin, has transformed over time, because when I first got married, I was a very ambitious and, in a sense, I didn't think I was, but a very selfish person with my time. And I always had a vision of being of being a political animal where the marriage was about me, and that my wife would support that. And she did, quite frankly, she did do it. But there is no person who can do that for years and not have some pain or some trauma. And over time, and there's no person who can have that arrangement as a man or a woman, and be the leader or the politician and not become selfish or take advantage of that partner. And no, that relationship was important because in a sense it grounded me. And I had to make a choice at one point where it wasn't an ultimatum or anything, but I noticed that my family was suffering through my political animalness, and that my wanting to be share my time with the public and with my family was not a good enough balance. I had to balance that a lot better, and my wife really helped me through that time, and was it didn't look like it. I didn't think it was at the time, but she was very supportive through those times, and I'm very grateful for that.
So I guess you'd have to say that some of the greatest women in the world come from Arkansas.
Oh no, my wife actually is from St. Louis, Missouri. We met.
Use that Arkansas.
That's a love story. We actually we both grew up in the city of St. Louis, literally less than a mile from each other. We
Really?
moved to different suburban parts of the city, and we went to high school in suburban parts of the city, and our high schools are less than 2 miles away from each other. We didn't know each other then. My wife went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She went to HBCU in the South. I went to school in the South in Huntsville, Alabama, which is not a mile apart, but one state, 2 states over. So we both had that experience, and we didn't meet till we were in Bentonville, Arkansas, living in
Wow.
the same apartment complex at a Walmart of all places.
Oh,
You
it's
know,
worth
we didn't meet online. I had to put some game on a young lady in Walmart, and to attract the beautiful lady I have. But no, she's not from Arkansas. There are some
it.
people in Arkansas, but the most beautiful woman I know comes from St. Louis, Missouri.
I want to just pivot a little bit to faith and where faith has played a part in your life throughout the years, and how it's impacted you in whatever way it has. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about what that means to you.
Oh, faith without works is dead. That's number one. So I think faith is a a part of success and has shaped me. My dad is a pastor, so
Okay.
I grew up in the church.
Yes, you
Um,
did.
and yeah, my dad's a good preacher. He's a very good preacher, and he instilled in me some very important scriptures from a young person. Um, and then my dad also in my childhood was not a great example of faith. At the same time, was not a very good example um, of being a pastor from time to time. And now he is a great example. And so faith has taught me that um, that sin is not something that's forever, and that there are um, that forgiveness is important on both sides, and forgiveness is a part of faith that we don't take advantage, not words not taking that we don't utilize as much, that we expect quite a bit, but we don't put out as much as Christians. And most importantly, faith is it's a belief in God that most folks don't dive deep into. When I say my dad's a pastor, my dad is a Pentecostal pastor. So if you know anything about denominations, Pentecostal is one of the
Yeah.
let's say hard hard believe in miracles kind of denomination. And I when there are times where my faith was tested, and everyone doubts uh, their whether God is hearing them or whether God has their best interest at heart.
Mhm.
I had enough experiences as a child and as a young adult to where um, I don't have to question it for more than 2 seconds. When I was a kid, I would lose things a lot. I lost things all the time. I was just like I said, I was an ambitious kid trying to run, and I was like kind of an athlete, so I would run around do things. So I never forget one time I was probably 11 years old. I lost my wallet, and I had a little money in that wallet, and we were living in the projects at the time, so $2.25 in that wallet. I needed that $2.25. And um one time, I don't know if my mom told me this or not, but I prayed about it. And I prayed, I was like, God, just please let me find my wallet. I need this money. Like, oh, and I found the wallet within like 30 seconds. I've been looking for it for. And throughout my childhood, I did that quite a bit. And after that, it worked. Of course, I would do it again. And every time I lose something, I would lose things, probably fairly important things, maybe once every 3 months. I'd be looking for it all over, and then I'd pray about it and I'd find it. And so that's an example for me where even as a young kid, um, my faith was shaped, that God is real, and I have experience with God that some of either my other siblings don't. I'm also say my father was as a Pentecostal, he was in a sense a healer. Um, there have been times where I was sick that my dad prayed over me, and I almost was immediately felt better and healed. And my dad had that kind of faith, and he still does. My dad has a physical kind of faith, and Pentecostals, a lot of Pentecostals have a physical belief that God is with us. We believe what Jesus said at the Last Supper, that what God had given Jesus, He was giving all the apostles. Some people believe it stops at the apostles. Pentecostals don't believe that. We believe that Jesus was saying that same power is within us, and every one of us, every single one of us who believe in Jesus. And uh, I continue that kind of faith generationally from my father to myself, and hopefully to my children.
Thank you for sharing that. One of the things I'd love to know, this is a question I don't get to ask very many people because many people aren't public servants. And if you were to give advice to somebody who is wanting to run for office or somebody who wants to live a life in public service, what are some of the things that you would say is great about it that you should absolutely run and do? And maybe some things they should caution themselves if this is the life that they would love to have?
Great question. The things that are great about public service are that you, depending on what position you're in or any leadership position, you're you're really at the forefront of every issue for folks. So what attracted me to politics and to be in public service was that the things that were plaguing my city and the things that give me trauma as a young poor person, that I could affect all of them. Not just if I was a teacher, I had my place is just in a sense just education. If I was a preacher, my place is really in the pulpit. As an elected official, if I was a lawyer, at one point I want to be a lawyer like my mom. I just do the judicial branch. But as a politician, you're trying to change laws and change the way tax dollars are spent that will change, that can each day be a different topic. But I will also caution people, what I learned later in life is that that could be a burden as well. And me and my wife first got married, our pastor and marriage counselor said that one thing he likes to tell new married couples is that the thing that attracts you to the person is going to be the thing that annoys you about them later on in the marriage. It happened in our marriage. And what attracted me to my wife, she said in marriage counseling, was that I was a very ambitious and in a sense entrepreneurial person. And 3 years into the marriage, that ambition meant that I had a lot of time away from the household and was putting my career over her. The same thing about politics. So having the responsibility of um, of being responsible for everyone's issues and being able to fix people's issues can become very can become difficult, and then you become responsible for other people's issues when you sometimes you have some personal issues of your own. So if I would ask folks not to be, I hear a lot from folks that they're worried about their past and negative attention. The real thing to be consider when getting into public office is that the issues of others, of not just others, of everyone, become your issues, and people expect you to solve not just your problems but their problems, and that could be a big burden.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do because you can't solve everybody's problems.
Got it.
You cannot.
You got it.
And some people just really don't want their problem solved. They just want to be able to complain about it.
A political mentor of me called being a city council member in St. Louis. He atoned it as doing the impossible for the ungrateful.
Ooh, wow.
Whenever people ask me, they ask me why I never ran for city council. Like I tell them that quote like that. And there are different levels where public service is not as people are. There are times where people are very grateful, but some of the lower levels, direct people, political offices you're doing the impossible for the ungrateful, and it could be a big burden. It could be difficult.
Wow, that's so cool. Man, this has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it so much. I've been super selfish in trying to get to know you and learn you and ask the questions that I wanted to know, and I hope everybody else that is watching gets to learn from that. But maybe just tell me a little bit about what you wanted to talk about. If there's something we missed, something we didn't get to talk about, how can people get a hold of you if you wanted to? I don't know if you wanted to or not, but maybe just from your heart, what would you love to share in the last few minutes?
Yeah, I want to add that I know you take a trip to Alabama every year with them, but I would say either mix it up or add in the state of Mississippi. As someone who went to college in Alabama, I've taken the same trip you have, the civil rights trip. I've been to Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham, a lot of the rural towns in the Black Belt, Alabama. Some of my best friends are from Mobile, Alabama. And there's a lot of history in the Black Belt and in Birmingham. But my family is actually from Mississippi. Okay. And we're from 30 minutes. My grandfather was born 30 minutes north of Jackson in Vaughn, Mississippi. There's just as much history in the state of Mississippi as well. And I've taken both civil rights trips. There are, but I will say choosing Alabama is a good state, because Alabama, in a sense, is where Georgia's where, in a sense, a lot of success is portrayed. Alabama, middle road. Mississippi, in some ways, is about the losses of the civil rights movement, about the sacrifice of folks in civil rights, and some of the extending circumstances from those sacrifices that just resonate with me so much, because my family's from there, and some of that spirit is still in me. From the Black men that sacrificed their life in Mississippi. When it comes to politics, Mississippi was the most powerful Black state during Reconstruction, right after slavery. The first Black United States Senator, Hiram Nevels, was from Mississippi, and the first one of the first U.S. Congressmen, Black U.S. Congressmen from Mississippi, and during Reconstruction. hundreds of Black men like myself ran for the state legislature, ran for the city council. Black people immediately in Mississippi started to take power and built beautiful cities, amazing structures, political structure, but they were murdered for it. Yeah. They were myself at a 26-year-old, I would have been murdered in Vaughn, Mississippi, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, trying to live out my purpose in life. And I think about those stories of the most well-known civil rights leader from Mississippi is Medgar Evers. It's not Martin. And in Georgia, it's Martin Luther King. In Alabama, it's Shuttlesworth, Reverend Shuttlesworth. In Mississippi, it was a man who was murdered, Medgar Evers. So I would just say I would love to go on a trip with you. But I would say let's add Mississippi in there, and then so much richness in the soil of Mississippi. So people can find me as Michael Butler on most of social media sites, or St. Louis City Recorder of Deeds, or STL Mike Butler.
Thank you so much. Thank you for spending your time with us today. What a wealth of information. I hope you look him up. I hope you check out everything you can. I am going to, for those of you thinking about going on a trip with us, I'm getting Mr. Butler with us because I know he knows the history way better than even I could pretend to or ever know to. And so if this is your first time that you've watched an episode with us, please be happy to turn on and hit the notifications and subscribe buttons and all the things that folks do in order to see the content that we're putting out. So many good guests, so many great folks that we just get to understand their lives and what they do and how they do it. And so I'd love for you to do that. You see on the bottom of the screen where it says becomingtheperson.com. We are launching a community about helping you become that person that you were meant to be, what God put you on this earth to be, in ways that you can't even believe. And so love for you to be a part of that as well. And so I can't wait to talk to you on the next one. Don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. Mr. Michael Butler, do you have any one last word that you'd love to share with everybody?
I'm very blessed to be on the podcast with you, Dr. B. Looking forward to continuing the relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you. You guys have an amazing, awesome, incredible day today. And we'll talk to you soon.